everyone, and welcome to Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimalaya, Channels Television studio here in the nation's political capital, Abuja. Should I say happy Mother's Day to every mother out there? Your labor of love is noticed, and we celebrate you on a day as this. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Before we venture into our major conversation tonight, there have been a series of attacks in the past days in the country. Attempts at kidnapping incident again in Kaduna, about 4 this time around by security operatives. But some words of hope is coming from the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. He's asking the nation to be strong and its people to stand strong in the midst of all of these adversaries and troubles. Well, perhaps you call it the security crisis in the country. The VP was a guest at the one-year anniversary of the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, as governor in office.
Despite the challenges that our nation faces, by the grace of God, we, the Nigerian people, are more than able to surmount these challenges. In Numbers 13 in the Bible, we are told of the story of the spies that Moses sent to go and spy out the promised land, which was then occupied by giants and enemies. The majority of the spies said, when they came back to report to Moses, they said, we cannot take over the land. This land that God has promised us is too difficult to take over. It's a land that swallows up its inhabitants. And there are man-killing giants everywhere. But Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit. They said, these giants are just bread for us. Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome them. So I say to you, the people of Imo State and the great people of Nigeria, yes, we have work to do. Yes, we have much to repair, but we are undaunted. The problems that we see today are the stepping stones to our great future. We are, by the grace of God, mightier than our challenges.
Those are some words of hope coming from the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. But that's not quite what we're going to be discussing on today's program. Tonight, our attention is on the development in the Niger Delta region of the country, perhaps a place where you say the nation's mainstay, oil, is being explored, an area that has seen enormous wealth explode, but still battles with the issues of underdevelopment and poverty. The Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, is an interventionist agency created to midwife development of the region. But how far has that come? Only on Friday did the federal government, led by the President Muhammadu Buhari and the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, commission perhaps the biggest single public office meant for the administration of the NDDC and activities in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. But what does that mean for the people of the Niger Delta? What would an edifice like this mean to the food on their table? Tonight, if there is a program that has brought to you information and questioned some of the activities of the Niger Delta and perhaps the NDDC, it's been this program you're watching right now on your screen. And tonight, we're going further to look in depth into what the NDDC is doing and as it is presently constituted, the work of the Buhari-led government in the Niger Delta region, the plight of the people of that region, and what hope they have at present. Tonight, I have a panel to start with. Now, hopefully, we'll have the Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is going to be joining us at some point on the program. But let's begin with a panel that will be dissecting some of these issues for us. And, of course, we're not just getting people on the outside to do the justice to this. We're getting people who are in the know. And so we have the CEO of the NDDC, the interim administrator of the NDDC, Mr. Effiong Okon Akwa. Thank you so much for coming tonight on the program.
Thank you, Shehu.
And, of course, we have a member of the APC, a public affairs analyst, Mr. Cletus Obon. Thank you, Mr. Obon, for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And from in Lagos, virtually joining us is a former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, a lawyer, Mr. Onyekachi Ubani. Thank you, Mr. Ubani, for coming on Sunday Politics. Let's begin the conversation with the CEO of the NDDC. What does an edifice like that mean for the Niger Delta? And perhaps with the kind of situation the people of Niger Delta are facing presently, is that what is needed right now?
First, Shane, let me thank you for the opportunity of bringing me into your program. Let me thank Nigerians and the entire Niger Delta and President Muhammadu Buhari for the opportunity to have this kind of edifice for the people of Niger Delta. The significance of the program, of the commissioning of this gigantic edifice that you've seen, it means so much to the people of Niger Delta. It means so much to the people of Nigeria. It means so much to the black race. Number one, you can't even do planning when you are in somebody's house. Assuming you are a tenant, for instance, the landlord comes in, you are confused if you are owing him rent. So you cannot even do planning. Planning from the perspective of planning. It is only when you are in an office of yours that you can sit down and begin to plan very well. Now, for having this kind of structure in place, we are now going to leave a rented apartment. We are now no more going to be struggling with the issue of lights, electricity, payment of rent, payment of other fees. We will be concentrating in our own building. And let me tell you something. A very senior director told me, oh God, do you know what has happened? Do you know that in recent times, I wear my suits to the office? I asked him, why are you saying so? He said in the past, it took us as a lawyer that he has not worn his suits for the past 1 year, because each time he thinks of getting to a hot environment, getting to a place that is not, you'll be powered by generator 24 hours, and the enthusiasm was not there, the ambience was not there. So it means so much to the people of Niger Delta. It will change your perception. It will change your perspective all the way around.
As a lot of people might agree that there is a need for an office space, the question is the need for that kind of space, considering the situation of the people of that region.
Don't forget, we are catering for 9 states. Don't also forget that Niger Delta is the mainstay. It produces the wealth of the nation. The wealth of the nation is predominantly domiciled in the Niger Delta. So you have occasionally, you have foreign nationals, you have international oil companies, multinationals, and others. Visitors coming to the South-South. There should be a one-stop office. There should be that will serve as a liaison, that will provide information, needed statistics, that will interface between the people and the various states. So you need a place like that.
Aside, so I'm thinking, because I listened to the president, I listened to the minister at that launch. The minister was talking about how much they were spending without using that facility. But I know that there's going to be a huge running cost of that kind of edifice too. How much was the rent in the last building?
You can, from what the minister told you, which he got it from the books. He didn't just mention any amount offhand. We were spending in excess of 300 million to be minimum. Not to talk about excluding costs of electricity, costs of generating the power, because we had to generate our power. Notice that the place was not linked to the national grid. So it made it almost impossible for us to have steady lights. And to power the lifts for 7th floor and other facilities, we had to be depending on our own private generating capacity. So which had a lot of bearing on the resources of the institute. So we spent a huge lot of resources that could have been put in other areas. So now with the commissioning of this, with the completion of this edifice, which you have seen, we're going to save, there will be huge savings. And there will be opportunity for people to sit down and do proper planning. Remember, if you don't plan, then you'll be planning to fail. If you don't have a good environment, you cannot also plan.
I mean, what does this mean for the Buhari government? I mean, because I saw the enthusiasm and the kind of joy, the kind of fanfare that we saw. How significant is this building in any case? Oh,
this is very significant. You know, for the past building that has been there for the past 26 years or thereabout, the building started during the days of Umpadek, about 1994. It started with land acquisition. 1996, various governments came, various administrations came, they went, none of them had the capacity. So it means so much for Buhari government because it portrays Buhari has demonstrated to Nigerians the capacity, the political will, because he did three major things which I captured in my address. Maybe if you had watched me, you would have seen it. He did three major things. Number one, he removed the Ministry of the supervision of Niger Delta Development Commission from the presidency just to reduce the workload in the presidency and allow presidency to be focused on other agencies and activities. He removed that. That was a plus. He needed that political will to do that. Then, two, he instituted forensic audits. Forensic audit, he appointed a firm of international auditors, Ernst & Young. They were appointed. The responsibility of the forensic auditors was to review the activities of NDDC, right from the year 2000 to 2019. And with that forensic audit performed magic. There were many instances where people picked mobilization in respect of projects, and they thought it was a national cake. With the introduction of forensic audits, and with the name Buhari, you know, because, I mean, the name Buhari is synonymous with integrity, is synonymous with strictness, is synonymous with, you know, one of the cardinal policy objectives of this government was to fight corruption. Remember, he said that if we don't kill corruption, then corruption may eventually kill us.
We'll get to that in a moment.
It means so much.
Yeah, because there are a lot of. I wanted to lay the background, and for the reason why we have this panel is not just that we will have you to give us information about what all of this means, is also to question some of the controversies and some of the gray areas. Let me go to Mr. Obun quickly. I mean, you're a member of the APC, and I've heard a lot of stuff in the cycle of the APC. Can there be any reason to say that the APC has fulfilled a social contract with the people of the Niger Delta? Because the perception in some quarters is that the APC has failed.
Well, let me begin this program by dedicating it to the Niger Delta people that we have now at last seen a president who has demonstrated in word and in action that the Niger Delta people mean a lot to him. After President, may so rest in peace, late President Yaradua laid the foundation of seriousness in the Niger Delta, I do imagine that after the last administration, before 2015, where we had a son of the soil in that place, we could have as well gone to sleep believing that in those 6 years we would have done so much. But in 5 years, you have seen demonstration, physical, practical demonstration of a political will on the part of this president. The politics of Oguni cleanup, the politics of double-crossing projects in which one road, one borehole, you have a signboard for local government, a signboard from the state, a signboard from Ministry of Works, a signboard from Ministry of Water Resources, a signboard from the state stating that it is a state project. If you come in the evening as a reporter, you will find another signboard. On the other side of the signboard, there is another government, another layer or agency claiming that same project. All those duplications and dubiosities were wrestled to the ground once this administration came to place. Now, the issue of APC failing, if APC has failed, it means Nigeria has failed. There is no indices, there is no index, except for those who have no longer access to the public tilt. For every other Nigerian, you cannot claim that the government, nowhere on earth, will you claim that the government has done so well that it is perfect. Nowhere on earth, no government on earth has come and one-stop finishes everything that is wrong with any community, whether it is America, whether it is China. So in the case of Nigeria, we have our shortcomings as a government. I will admit that, and nobody can. For instance, the issue of Boko Haram telling us that it is haram to go to school, Western education is dangerous, is now being fulfilled by Boko Haram insisting that schools should close by sending us to a panic button by the way they are going into schools now to stop children, and schools are being shut down. That is their aim. And this is one point I want to make here. In the case of the Niger Delta, the issue of restiveness, only recently, 2 weeks ago to be precise, we saw the resurgence of Niger Delta militants coming out and promising and reeling out another standing order of demands asking for certain things to be done. But before today, you found that that area has been sufficiently calmed and nerves have been calmed. This sole administrator, for example, his coming had calmed nerves also in the Niger Delta. That means the president is listening to the tone, tension and temperature of the Niger Delta people. So I do think that as far as the Niger Delta is concerned, if you take the forensic audit, which has stopped the looting in the Niger Delta, if you take the building now, which now means that we have institutional memory. If, for example, you go to ask for some project, the road to my place has already been completed on paper. If not for the forensic audit, we would have had no documentation to show that that road was not done. I'm just from my place, and I'll play you tapes of the road I'm having to construct myself with personal funds. Now, it's ongoing, and my community had to join to come and clear the place as we speak today. Maybe by the time we leave, the sole administrator will take over that job. Otherwise, it was awarded thrice in the past and never by NDDC, not just by any other agency. I'm talking about a practical thing happening in my community today. Therefore, this government of Muhammadu Buhari for the Niger Delta people means well. Indeed, Governor Wike, in his visit, when he visited him to announce his presence, Governor Wike of PDP in Niger Delta himself praised him so badly and so well and assured that he was going to cooperate with him, with the sole administrator sitting here. It's on tape. You had it.
When you say that the tempers have been calm and nerves have been calm in the Niger Delta region, I mean, it's on the news that the governors of the region are also talking. The Niger Delta militants are talking now, and there are a few things that they feel unhappy about. But that on one hand, the issue you mentioned and the question I asked about the social contract of the people of the Niger Delta with the APC government, they will be asking the question, for example, that we needed all of these infrastructure projects, all of these roads, this water, but we have gotten an edifice. Is edifice what the people need?
Now, again, when you go into that, like he said about planning, it is nearly impossible under the circumstances in which we found NDDC, whose main duty was to be an intervention agency in spite of the presence of the states, the local governments, in spite of the Ministry of Work, that it is to intervene where there is lack on account of the resources and the impact on the region. This is the main focus. It does not replace the Ministry of Works. It does not replace the state government's duties to its local government. So to that extent, as an intervention agency, it cannot be a replacement for state or for local governments or for federal allocations because the 13% is still there. NDDC is there. You have the Northeast Commission coming up as a result of the same thing, the same demands of we have this. Therefore, I feel that to that extent, this government has demonstrated more than any other government in our history. And I exempted Yaradua. No other government, not even when our son was there, did we get this kind of attention. Ogoni cleanup is an example. The East-West Road is another example.
All right.
Remember
just
how
a
much
moment, Mr. Albon, because a few issues are surrounding, in fact, the composition of the NDDC as it is right now. Thank goodness we have a lawyer. Mr. Obani is there for us. There are people who have questioned the constitution of the, perhaps the way the NDDC is presently constituted, the board, and they're asking, the interim board has been there for longer than the envisaged. The governors are talking in the Southside region. They've described it as an illegal entity. Give us the legal point of view in that area because we're due for a break, maybe in 40 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, Sheikh, for having me once again. On the issue of constitution of the board of NDDC is something that is clearly in the Act. The Act makes a provision for the constitution of the board. But the appointment of the interim administrator is for a purpose and for a reason and for a season. Now, the reason for appointment of the interim administrator, which is done by the president on the recommendation of the minister himself, is to ensure that they complete the forensic audit, which everyone has pointed out is ongoing. And we need to actually clear that particular side of the process. So that you now can have a board that now can give new direction to the NDDC. Because you know that the NDDC has an objective, and which all of them have mentioned, the issue of the youth restiveness and then the militancy that was pervading the particular region. and the issue of degradation of the environment and some other reasons brought the existence of this NDDC as an interventionist agency. Over time, that particular purpose has not been fulfilled.
Apologies, and then the government now came into your intervention. We are due for a break. I'll allow you to continue after this break. And up next on the program, the Niger Delta region, Buhari's plans and the development of the people. We'll talk more on these issues and the prevailing matters. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue with the conversation and look deeper into some technical issues on the Niger Delta Development Commission, the NDDC, the Niger Delta region, the issues that have come up in recent times. I've been talking with the interim administrator and CEO of the NDDC, Mr. Efiongo Konakwa, and also is Mr. Klatus Obun here in the studio with me. He's a member of the APC and the public affairs analyst. Virtually, he's a lawyer joining us and a former second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Monday Onyekachi Ubani. Thank you so much, Mr. Ubani. Let me allow you to land on that trajectory you were on before we went on that break.
Yeah, as I was saying, the validity of the appointment of the sole administrator has been tested, and the court has actually affirmed that there is nothing illegal about that appointment. But as I said earlier, the purpose of allowing that appointment for the meantime is to ensure the completeness of the forensic audit that is ongoing. And there is no way you can now constitute a board when that has not been completed. I understand that very soon, this process of forensic audit, which is clearly beneficial to the region, will be completed. Because almost 75% of the contractors who collected these monies up front and refused to complete their contract, immediately this forensic audit thing came up. Most of them have gone back to site. Without awarding any contract today, as I speak to you, I hear that the NDDC have almost had 75% of jobs of those people collected, completed, which is also clearly a good news. So if there has been a promise of constituting a board and the validity of the interim administrator has been validated by the court, I think that they should be patient enough to have this completed. So it's very important that this forensic audit be completed so that the board can come in with a new lease of life, with a new directive, in order to actually position this particular interventionist agency to fulfill its objective. The objective have not been fulfilled over time. Billions have been wasted. We're talking about the NDDC head office that had just been completed. This project started in 1996, and for 20-something years, it was clearly abandoned until 2019, that this government really looked toward that direction and said, we must have a head office where we work, because it's not proper that we'll be having an office where we're paying 300 million naira every year and then don't even have any light. It was not even, there was no national grid attached to that particular office, and they have completed it now. And so they can now begin to plan and begin to reposition the NDDC in order to fulfill those central objectives. So to me, there is no question as to the validity of appointment of the interim administrator. It has been validated by the court. It is not illegal. But for the meantime, let that be completed, the forensic audit be completed, so that you can have a new board to give clear direction to the existence of this particular agency.
Let me come back to the NDDC CEO. The interim board of the NDDC has been described as an illegal setup. I understand that you are a chartered accountant and also you have some background in law. Perhaps I'd like to throw this question because a few people would probably have asked you this question too. And in view of the NDDC Act, the reign of the interim board has been tagged illegal. In fact, some governors of the region have asked that the NDDC account be blocked. When will a proper board of the NDC be inaugurated? And the big question is, are you occupying an unlawful position?
Thank you, Isheun. Let me start by thanking my senior professional colleague. At this point in time, because it is said that knowledge is power. People without knowledge can do so many things. And it's good to get clear knowledge. I want to drop my chartered accounting background. Let me drop my calculator and biro, and then pick up literally my week. I very much appreciate what our senior professional colleague has said. But beyond that, look at constitutional provisions. The law, the appointing powers of Mr. President is enshrined in Section 171 of the Nigerian Constitution as amended. In Section 171, subsection 1, the president has power. It is clearly written that the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall have power to appoint in subsection 2. It went further to name the offices. The offices are the office of the permanent secretary, the secretary to the government of the federation, the ambassadors, heads of foreign, heads of agencies, and extra ministerial department. NDDC is a government agency, and therefore my appointment is within the purview of Mr. President. Perhaps the people are just looking at the NDDC Act, and an act of parliament, that's just an act of parliament. It is not a constitution. And it's in law where the act, where any subsidiary legislation is in conflict with the constitution. To the extent of that conflict, it becomes a nullity. So the appointive power, I am not occupying a legal situation for your information. The president has powers to appoint any person, has heads of these agencies, and he has the power, and he has done so. Having said that, let me also mention the fact that all that we have been doing, the forensic audit has brought in a lot of revelations, has also helped us.
When will the report be ready? Oh, it looks like it's going forever.
No. The first, in the interim report has been released. With the minister has made an initial memo to the reporting, the reporting agency, maybe to the office of the chief of staff. I don't know.
As the investigation resumed, because after a forensic audit, there should be investigation and prosecution, should it?
No. The essence of, this is where we get it all wrong. Essence of forensic investigation is not to really, it's not up in issue, it's not simplicity to get people arrested, detained, and maybe punished. It's to get things, right the wrongs, ensure that things that were hitherto done in abnormal way have been put in a normal way.
Sorry, I'm button, because these are perhaps the thought of a lot of Nigerians out there, that when there is a forensic audit, you wanted to know what was done wrong in the past.
Yes.
So we are just going to have a white paper document, a document, and not have any investigation or punish those who have, in quote, looted the tilt of the NDDC in the past.
Well, my brother has mentioned instances where jobs have been awarded by local government, states, and NDDC. This, nobody, I don't know, I'm not holding brief for NDDC, neither will I hold brief for the local government, because some of these things may have to do with information. Maybe things in Nigeria have not been digitalized, and so you may not have these various locations put in the budget. Sometimes you can see something, and within the NDDC, let me also inform you, you can see a project this year, in this year's budget. By next year, you are seeing that if the budget was it was not conclusive, you will see it will be rolled over. So some persons may think that it has been re-awarded. It is not a new award. So issues like that, but to some extent, Cletus has his point because he's on the field. I am in the office. He sees, there are things he sees, I don't see. But there are things I see, he don't see. But let me also tell you the benefit of this forensic audit. We have analyzed. For instance, I had an engagement with the National Assembly, the chairman of the House of Reps Committee on NDDC, a very intelligent, cerebral man. And he's saying that from my interactions with him and the observation of the forensic auditors, you can discover that when you get through the NDDC Act, functions of the Executive Director project are not listed. Functions of Executive Director of Finance are not specifically given, except that given by maybe Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. So you only have a reference point to the Office of the CEO. So some CEOs in the past saw themselves as king because they assume all powers, whereas it shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be so. I don't want to be a CEO that has all the powers. The power should be segmented. Okay. Powers must be given out. So these were not done.
There is a fundamental issue here.
Yes.
And it has to do with the governors of the South-South region.
Good.
They are not happy. And in fact, some of their comments include the fact that they are not carried along. How do you run NDDC when the governors of the region are not supporting it?
Correct. You cannot run because the governors, as they are, they constitute what we call Presidential Advisory Committee. That is why when I was inaugurated, I was given the mandate to oversee the affairs of NDDC as interim administrator. the part of my mandate given by the president and the minister of Niger Delta, the minister clearly said he doesn't want further conflict with anybody. If he doesn't want loss of focus, ensure that you bring all the presidential advisory committee members into focus, ensure that you engage them before you are planning process. So I went around. You can see recently I've gone to River State. River State, the governor there is doing wonderfully well in terms of infrastructure and so on. So who wouldn't want to partner with such a person? And when I went there to see him, he was happy. He said, this is for the first time. I'm seeing MD CEO of the NDDC for the first time, face to face. This engagement should continue. If we do that, I can tell you what I'm looking for. For instance, right on the spot, he told me he needs Eastern Bypass. He wants to collaborate with me. He's doing beautiful Eastern Bypass. I should take 50% of that budget out because it leads to my office. I should be ready to partner with the state. We said yes, we agreed.
But they're saying that consult them before you...
exactly. So
are you going to be doing that now?
We are already doing it. I've been to River State. I've been to Akwa Ibom State, my state. I consulted with the governor. The governor told me his areas of concern. Doesn't want people to come and be patching roads and go and look at the 132 kVA that links Ikorobasi and brings in the lights from the other section. So we are doing that.
Because the governor of Delta State was quoted to have said that the account of the NDDC, in fact, should be frozen at such a time that the board will be constituted and that only salaries should be paid. If you are hearing those kind of comments, how do you think you are going to get the kind of support that you need from the stakeholders?
Oh, don't forget that the governors have the rights to suggest. These are suggestions that will advance the region.
Are these suggestions or concerns?
They are concerns. These concerns and suggestions. These are concerns that will advance the region. They haven't said anything bad as far as I'm concerned. They are saying, you know, there is this idea of, there is this perception of being part of the administration of NDDC. And some states will think naturally that they have been shortchanged, but they have not been shortchanged. Let me announce to them, they have not been shortchanged. Maybe if my state governor were to be there, his opinion would have been different because he knows his son, he's on seat, and he knows my capacity that I wouldn't go into politicking. I wouldn't go into doing things. So the consent of the Delta State governor is that in the past, we've had Delta politics. In fact, Delta politics almost went into NDDC. So the man is saying appointees coming to play politics rather than doing work. So that is why he is concerned. I would have been, if I were in his shoe, I would have almost suggested the same thing. Set up a board. But right now, the president knows what he's doing. We're handling, board is going to be, he said, I didn't come there to stay permanently as interim administrators to CEO. Boards will be set up. So they have a concern because it's not every time you have somebody like Mr. Kwa who will come in and sit down and focus on the job, come in and sit down, focus on development, go in and sit down, and focus on completion of projects.
We'll come back. I mean, you're giving yourself a pass mark already. Because
I'm not supposed to give myself a pass mark. The public have said so.
The public say you have performed?
The public have said so.
In the little time that you've been there?
Oh, yes.
What have you delivered to them?
Oh, many things. We've ensured the completion of the head office project. I went around to the states that I've visited, I've donated because I discovered that in the states, like for instance, I quote River State because I stay there. They are doing so well. If you enter some of the estates around, it's as if you are in London. So I went to the governor and said, you have done projects, you will finish projects, you will finish everything. But there is one thing that will remain a work in progress, and that is issue of sanitation in the environment. So I want to donate to you the waste disposal trucks. He saw it with me and was so happy. So we've done that. We've also visited hostels. We want to complete university hostels so that the students, when they resume, this issue of COVID, because we need students to have social distancing, have a comfortable dwelling environment where they will not be affected by COVID.
We'll come a bit into some of the issues.
In a short while, we've gotten a budget that was not there. We've operated NDDC for the past 2 years. There was no budget. When I came in, because I knew the importance, I went to the National Assembly. Thank God we had good men. The president of the Senate is wonderful.
The National Assembly and NDDC interim board they've been fighting. We've seen. I mean, they've had disagreements, and we saw what happened in the National Assembly. So what happened?
You know, when these things have to do with information. National Assembly has, when you know your role And when you know the other person's role, engagement becomes easy. I know that National Assembly has rights, oversight rights. They have a right to do oversight on NDDC. I also know that I have the right to execute the projects in line with what the wills of the people are. So we went to them and we did engagement. I approached the president of the Senate. I wrote a letter that we cannot operate without a budget. Please, can you allow me appear before the plenary? They consider they are noblemen. They have seen that for the past 1 or 2 years. We've not awarded any project contract in NDDC. The people are suffering, and that's the region that will produce about 90% of the nation's resources. So they bent over and said, okay, you can come. When I went in and presented myself to them and the budget, at the end, it was Senator James Manager that raised a motion, seconded by the Chief Whip, Senator Oji Kalu, and the other House of Rep member, Ben Kalu. I should take a bow that to them that they have, it appears it appears that I have met their requirement.
All right, just a moment.
We have a budget as we speak.
Let's speak to Mr. Obun. A matter has been raised by your governor, Governor Ayade, and he said it will be unfair because Cross River has been delisted as an oil-producing community. And he said, look, if you are taking up the PIB, it will be important for you not to only consider the oil-producing community, but also those ones that are impacted. And he said that Cross River is highly impacted. That's a major concern. The issue of the spillage and the cleanup under this government is a big concern, isn't it?
Yes. I think the governor of Cross River State was speaking the reality of the Cross River tragedy. We have been rendered, half of our state have been rendered stateless. We have people who are now refugees in their own country, rejected by Cameroon, not resettled by Nigeria. Even the Green Tree Agreement, major components of Green Tree Agreement have never been fulfilled, and Nigeria has not taken any step to redeem Cross River State. Indeed, I do remember that under Governor Akpabio, with Lea Limoke, he offered to give to Cross River State a percentage of the allocation due to Akwa Ibom State on sympathy grounds that the Cross River State keeps over 60% of its investment from Akwa Ibom. And that happened. But the Nigerian state has been quite unfair. Therefore, when the governor of Cross River State makes that point, he's speaking from an environmental impact assessment position. Most of the ports arising from oil spillages settle in the Cross River estuary. And half of the maritime boundaries of Cross River State are international. The so-called Bakassi, which was taken illegally, as far as I'm concerned, there shall come a government that is going to recover Bakassi because the crowd of the Nigerian people, and especially those Nigerians that have been displaced and made stateless, is going to certainly be resettled.
How bad is the spillage in Cross River State?
It's as bad, for example, that even those resettled between the Akpabio axis, where you have this impact. I met a professor of petroleum technology, Professor AUS Timyo, who has been doing an assessment for NDDC over the years. In fact, he did a master plan for NDDC. If you meet him today, and I wish that on one of these occasions you bring him to tell you how dangerous, first health-wise, second in terms of economy of the people of the creeks of Calabar, the Calabar estuary, up to Akpabio. In fact, between Tom Short Island and Bakassi, the real Bakassi people, what ought to be called the new Bakassi, you ought to have there a settlement for Nigeria and Nigerians by the Nigerian government and the Cameroonian government as enshrined in the Green Tree Agreement that Obasanjo illegally brought into this country as president of Nigeria. We would therefore ask that what Governor Ayade is saying is a terrible condition that has just been underplayed. And I do think that with time, the Nigerian state will discover that it is a huge error. Presently, the crisis in southwest Cameroon is impacting again in that same region. So we're going to have a lot of ripple effects economically, socially, and in terms of military and military.
Do you think that Cross River should be re-enlisted within the oil-producing community?
Do we not have... Cross River State, in fact, has onshore oil wells as we speak today. Cross River has... So the delisting was, first of all, terrific, especially when the Supreme Court ruled. It ought to be a political solution which Atta and Donald Duke, Governor Atta and Governor Duke, enshrined. I was then in Parliament, and we agreed that there should be a political solution. It was 90 oil wells. Akwa Ibom had others which were sharing boundary with River State. When it came to Cross River, Governor Atta and Governor Duke with the House of Assembly, agreed to do a political solution in which 76 oil wells were to remain in Cross River and 14 joined to what Akwa Ibom had. When it came to the turn of Imoke and the governor of Akwa Ibom State Governor, it went to court, and rather than take a political solution like brothers, it never got to happen. So I do think that Cross River has to be returned to oil producing states, at least to ameliorate the damage done and the impact of that the ICJ judgment, International Court of Justice judgment in The Hague. That judgment has been quite unfair. Nigeria had 12 years, 10 years to appeal that matter. We all thought that they should go back. Even when Cross River offered to pay for that appeal, the Nigerian state, under Jonathan, refused to give us that chance, and we lost it. So we cannot lose both to Nigeria, to the international community, and make our people become vulnerable. So Cross River has to be enlisted for justice to be seen to be done.
We are due for another break. But a major issue, again, that I will bring to your notice is the issue of scholarships under the NDDC. What is happening? There are a lot of concerns which I'd like you to talk on, and some other issues. Don't forget, we still have Mr. Onyekachi Ubani, the lawyer. I will ask him about the issue of the PIB. And up next on the program, we're going to break, but when we come back, we're looking at the expectations of the on the NDDC and the burden of delivery. We'll be right back to talk more. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back to the program. So we're on the last leg of the show, and our focus tonight is on the NDDC. How far has things gone in terms of development in the region? Before I come back to, I'd like to come back to you on the issue of scholarship, but don't let us make it, let's touch on the issue of the PIB, and let me allow, because I was asking Mr. Obun that question relating to the PIB and the plight of the Cross River people. Let me allow Mr. Ubani to give us his thoughts about the issue of the PIB and the plight of the Niger Delta region. For years, over 10 years now, we've been looking forward to see a PIB, and a lot of people say, without a PIB, we won't have a proper administration of funds and the issue of petroleum industry administration in the Niger Delta region. How do you think we can make the PIB or facilitate or fast track the passage of the PIB? And in your view, what do you think is delaying the passage of the PIB? We've seen several National Assembly that have worked upon it and dropped it. But the President Buhari government said he's going to make sure that it happens. And under Senator Ahmed Lawan, they said they're going to make it happen. But we're still waiting.
It's a good question. What is the objective of the PIB? Is to actually improve the sector performance of the oil sector, and then infuse what we call transparency, and then it becomes beneficial to the people of that particular region where the oil is drilled. And over time, we have seen that the oil sector is operated in such a manner that is clearly opaque. There is nothing transparent about it, and that has also been the reason why over the years, every administration will talk about passage of that, and it end up not being passed because there are some militating factors. There are forces behind the non-passage of that bill. Because the passage of that bill, we change the equation, we change the narrative of the oil sector. There has to be what we call sector performance improvement. There has to be transparency in that sector. And then there has to be, issue of investment, investors coming into the industry in such a manner that it will benefit the people the more. But for now, there are some people that are enjoying the sector, including the people who are foreigners, more than the people that, the oil is domiciled in their environment. And so you see the stakeholders every time crying and saying, let's go ahead and pass this particular bill so that we have a sector improvement. We have transparency infused into the system. But some forces are sitting down and saying it can never happen. Well, I want to believe that this government will actually ensure the passage of that bill before the exit of this particular government that is in power. And if they do it, they would have done good to the people from that region. They would have also done good to the Nigerian economy and ensure that that particular sector that generates over 90% of our economy is clearly now done in a transparent manner to the beneficiary, the people who will now be benefit from it rather than few people that are actually benefiting. The oil sector is, as I said, is clearly opaque. everything about it is treated in secrecy. But that sector needs transparency. And the only thing that can infuse that transparency is the passage of that bill. But why, over time, people are sitting down and ensuring that that bill is not passed is something that I can't understand. But I know that with the government resolve, and they have said it, we believe that this bill will see the light of the day, and there will be an acclaim, sort of commendation for this particular government in pulling that through.
Right, let me come back to the CEO of the NDDC. I've had conversations. I said it before the program started, that on this program we've probed and we've looked into the issues of the NDDC and several programs we've had on the issue of the Niger Delta. I've spoken to several students from the Niger Delta who are on scholarship outside of the country. A lot of them are saying they have not been paid their tuition fees. Some of them are complaining that they are stranded. Why is that happening?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, students that were on foreign scholarship have all been settled. The schools initially we had an initial problem because of verification. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, most students who had the scholarship didn't travel, and they were expected to travel and be in the other way to benefit from this scholarship. And because the scholarship goes with extra good, with feeding and with feeding, maintenance, tuition fees, and so on. Most of them were taking tuitions online. They didn't travel. They didn't do documentations in their school. And then they were running a public institution, subject to accountability, subject to audits like forensic exercise. And when we went, we sent people to go and verify the authenticity, the genuineness of these students. Most of them were not in the portal. So, and there is nothing you could do at that time. So we had to pay the rest whose names were. Subsequently, most of them had their documents uploaded into the portal. And so this had to do with the crisis of you hearing, oh, I was paid, I was not paid, they paid some people.
It was a huge embarrassment, Mr. Akwa, because a lot of them staged the protests outside of the Nigerian house in London.
Don't also forget, my brother, that people tend to politicize everything, particularly in the South. But in the Nigeria.
Are you saying it did not happen?
Oh, it happened. The protests, I saw it myself.
Yeah.
And most of them were politically motivated.
Have you cleared all of these backlogs?
We've cleared them.
So there is no student of Nigeria stranded outside of the country?
Except they are not students. And we are even saying, because the way it is right now, we had engagement with the ministry. The minister of Niger Delta is very passionate about this. Remember when he was a governor, he was sending students all over. He had free scholarship for students in the states, free and compulsory education. So he took this issue of scholarship exceptionally. He took it up with us. That why are you causing embarrassment to the country and so on? So when we explained this to him, he saw reasons. And we have even gone a step further to say, look, going forward, since the COVID does not allow people, it's creating barriers for students to travel physically for studies, we can duplicate what happened in the University of Ilorin in those days. I know, for instance, universities like Lagos, students who offered medicine, Ife was known for law, University of Lagos for some faculty, engineering, and medicine for UI. Ilorin, we had a chair. We are even thinking of...
Perhaps that's the best university you find in this country.
Yes.
University of Ilorin. Because that's where I finished from.
You finished from there?
Yeah.
You are biased? Are you not biased? So, but I want to make a point. I want to make a point. We want to select... If I knew that you came from University of Ilorin, then I would have used another university. But I give it to you. I give it to you. Anything good, I like good things. So I give it to you. But what we want to do going forward, instead of sending $30,000 per student, wasting that money on one student, why don't we get to the 6 universities in the South? Get to University of Port Harcourt, get to University of Uyo, get to Niger Delta University in Bayelsa, get to Imo State University, and get centers of excellence. Dump in our resources there, get professors, recruit them from anywhere in the world, whether they are foreigners, whether they are and make sure they are the best. And then send our students there. Ensure that we might even go a step further to signing and understanding that either they can even withdraw from ASU. Tell us what you want, we will take care of it. and you make sure, because we want to ensure zero strike. Because why some parents send these students overseas is not because these schools are too much. For instance, you have some universities in Ghana where I queried some students. Why are you getting to, you have best university, you have Covenant University in Nigeria, you have other universities, UI and others.
So you're discouraging people traveling when we have
in the circumstance that we have found ourselves now. In the circumstance that we have found ourselves because of COVID-19, people no longer travel. They will even go there to sit in one room and be playing games and be looking at them. At the end of the day, they tell you they're attending lectures online. So why don't we do something that is proactive? Why don't we do something that is enduring? Why don't we do something that is sustainable? Get to the universities, fund these universities, and allow Nigerians to then sponsor more students. We can sponsor. The cost of sponsoring one student can take as well as 15 students.
So we're out of time. We're gradually ramping up now. But a lot of people have raised concern about the sustainability, monitoring, and evaluation of the NDDC. In fact, that building, people are talking about the cost analysis, the sustaining the maintenance of that structure. If again my producer can put up that building, so Nigerians can see just how huge that building is. In terms of maintenance, they're also concerned about how you want to maintain it. Give us an understanding, because we also know that there are not all of the spaces in that building will be used by the NDDC.
Beautiful. I think it's a beautiful question you have asked. The pictures you are showing to Nigerian public is not complete. We have a service building, service building, which we are going to use for banks. People are going to rent it for banks, for hospitals, for restaurants. It's going to be used for other services, event centers, and so on. If you want to marry, if you are not married, are you married?
I'm married.
Okay, you are married. Those who are not married can come and use the event center and then pay less. We are going to generate resources for the Niger Delta, for the Niger Delta Development Commission. And then for the management of the facility, ask yourself, how is NNPC managing that complex? How is Central Bank managing the complex of Central Bank? We're going to leave it to professional facility managers. We won't leave it in the hands of civil servants. All the Procurement Act is saying, do whatever you are doing, make it public. And make it transparent. Get people to bid, people who can manage the facilities will be running. And then we let other spaces that we are not using. And we raise income for Nigeria, we raise income for Niger Delta.
Let me allow the rest of the panel to throw in their final thoughts, just about in 30 seconds. Mr. Auburn, the Niger Delta and what we have in the NDDC, the way forward from your point of view.
Well, let me conclude this comment by saying that with what this president is doing, I do hope that subsequent governments will follow up. This is the first government in our history that takes government as a continuum. There's continuity. 90% of the Buhari projects is completing from previous governments. Whether it is the railway, whether it is the East-West Road, whether it is the NDDC building, whatever it is. This is responsibility. This is governance in action. The second thing I want to say about the Niger Delta people is that we should not become, like the president said, the vice president said, a land that devours its inhabitants. We constantly are in a state of cantankerous vociferity. At all times, we are quarreling among ourselves in a manner that we cannot even understand why we are quarreling. Therefore, at the moment where we are, the whole world is looking at us, we have all the resources. Let us move together as a people and conquer the poverty in our land to make the youth restlessness history and to make our people...
Mr. Obo, unfortunately, you will not allow me to get Mr. Ubani's thought because we are totally out of time. But I must sincerely thank you. Apologies, Mr. Ubani, that I will not be able to come to you because we are totally out of time. But I must sincerely thank everyone who has spoken tonight on the program. Unfortunately, we invited the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio. For some reasons, we understand that he is unable to make it tonight on some of the issues that we have loved him to react to. But thank goodness we have Mr. Akwa here, who is the CEO and the interim administrator of the NDDC. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And Mr. Cletus Auburn, a member of the APC and public affairs analyst, thank you so much. And the lawyer on the program, Mr. Onyekachi Ubani, a former second vice president of the NBA. Thank you so much for your thought tonight. It's pretty much well appreciated. Thank you so much. And that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. Bye for now.